तू खुद की खोज में निकल, तू किस लिए हताश है? तू चल, तेरे वजूद की समय को भी तलाश है, समय को भी तलाश है। जो तुझसे लिपटी बेड़ियां, समझना इनको वस्त्र तू। जो तुझसे लिपटी बेड़ियां, समझना इनको वस्त्र तू। ये बेड़ियां पिघाल के बना ले इनको शस्त्र तू, बना ले इनको शस्त्र तू। तो खुद की खोज में निकल, तो किस लिए हताश है? तो चल, तेरे वजूद की समय को भी तलाश है, समय को भी तलाश है।
Savage, brutal, inhuman. 3 horrific attacks in one day, and that too in the heart of India, in its capital city. 3 women killed in the most gruesome manner. 2 of them were stabbed by their stalkers, while a third was thrown off the balcony by a jilted suitor. One of them, Karuna, was a teacher in Delhi's Burari. Her stalker, Aditya Malik, had been stalking Karuna for months. That morning, he was waiting for her with a pair of scissors with which he stabbed her 27 times. The one passerby who came to help was scared away, and no one else came to Karuna's defense, and a sweet young smile was snuffed forever. Not too far away, on the same day in Indrapuri, another girl, Lakshmi, was stabbed by her stalker of 1.5 years. Interestingly, Lakshmi had complained to the police about her stalker, who had also been arrested but was now out on bail. Both the stalkers killed themselves after murdering the hapless women. A few months ago, an Infosys employee in Chennai, Swathi, was hacked to death with a sickle by Ram Kumar, who had befriended her on Facebook, then stalked her online and also followed her offline. He knew her movements and was waiting for her by the railway station where her father dropped her for work every morning. Ram Kumar was arrested and later committed suicide in jail, but that did not bring Swathi back to her friends and family. What is equally horrifying but falls below the radar is the way popular cinema actually encourages this kind of weird and creepy behavior. We have movie after movie showing the aspirational hero chasing the woman of his dreams after she says no, only to have that woman say an eventual yes, which leads to the popular misconception in the male psyche that a no actually means a yes. So now just take a look at the way sometimes cinema actually tends to glamorize the menace of stalking.
देख भाई, अपने उत्तर प्रदेश में ना लड़कियां 2 तरीके से पटाई जाती हैं। एक तो मेहनत से, सुबह से शाम पीछा करो, घर के बाहर, स्कूल के बाहर, बाजार में, सड़कों पे, साइकिल पे, रिक्शा में, टेम्पो में, रो दो, खाना खाना छोड़ दो, वजन घटा दो, और लड़की को इतना थका दो कि वो थक के हाँ बोल दे।
इधर आ।
Bloody idiot!
और वो धोबी से वो लड़कियां क्यों भिड़ गई? क्या जरूरत थी उसके मुंह लगने की? अरे लड़कों के मुंह लगोगी तो अच्छी बात है क्या?
उधर मत देख, बस नीचे मुंह करके चलती रहे।
राधे, वो देख, इंदु के साथ कोई फ्रेशर आ रही है। सुनिए। अरे इधर आइए ना।
बस एक बार कह दो कि तुम भी मुझसे प्यार करती हो।
मैं तुमसे नफरत करती हूँ।
एक बार कह दो शिवानी कि तुम भी मुझसे प्यार करती हो।
निकल जा यहाँ से।
एक बार कह दो कि तुम भी मुझसे प्यार करती हो।
कीड़े पड़ेंगे, तड़प तड़प के मरेगा तू।
एक बार कह दो कि तुम भी मुझसे प्यार करती हो।
बाहर जो धोबी के लड़के छेड़ते हैं ना, चुपचाप मुंह नीचे करके चल जाया करो, क्योंकि जितना पलट के जवाब दोगी उतना छेड़ेंगे। और क्या पता एक दिन तुम मिलोगी वो बगल वाले नाले में कटी पिटी। औरतें जितनी चुप रहे उतना अच्छा है।
रिक्शा वाले पैसे ना लेना मैडम से, भाभी है तुम्हारी।
You are mad? ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। Forget me.
You forget me.
Well, we've just seen how both Bollywood and Tollywood tend to romanticize stalking as something that is part of the wooing ritual, where girls are shown as saying no when they mean yes, simply because an outright yes may make her seem too easy. So debating this, are we actually encouraging this kind of behavior at some subliminal level? Joining me for this discussion today is Advaita Kala. She's an author and screenwriter. We have Dilip Cherian, image guru and social commentator. And we have Nupur Sharma, who is a BJP leader, but more importantly for us today, she's also a lawyer. Dilip, I'm going to begin with you. You know, we just saw the screen films, some of the shots. Are we actually encouraging this kind of behavior?
Definitely. I think historically it's been that films have made the man to be in hot pursuit and the lady to show dignity by saying no, and then finally in many cases succumbing.
Correct.
So it's ingrained, as it were. It's a behavioral construct which is inappropriate but acceptable, and therefore thrown down people, and it's now become subliminal. And I think huge societal education needs to take place, and it's not easy to erase, but it's definitely vitally necessary to erase it today, because you can't afford to have what's going on the streets in terms of anger, and it's spilling out in all kinds of vicious manner, which is happening more and more often.
So as an image guru, would you actually advise stars and people like Shah Rukh Khan to not do such films, because we have this big Me Too culture with brand names?
Why should we be advising the stars? It should be the producers and the screenwriters who should be laying down the guidelines. But unfortunately, the issue is that it's got ingrained into a kind of popular folklore in such a way that probably there is a hunger for, or there's an easier acceptability of this kind of portrayal. And that is the easy line to fall to.
Advaita, screenwriters, what would
I saw that. I heard that rather.
Because they defined the story as they should.
So should you show more cases of this? I know it is part of our culture also. A girl cannot seem as too willing, then you become too easy. So where do you draw this line, and how do we send the right message?
I think it's complicated because, films, if you look at cinema, the way it's evolved over the decades and how they've sort of explained or tried to visualize the male-female mating ritual, so to speak, on screen, right from the time when you had those little bushes getting into a tizzy when you wanted to show a kiss, to now how many kisses are there in a film. So there is that progression where the courtship or the period of courtship is represented differently. I think what happens right now in the present context is that we've been discussing consent to such an extent, and to such, because there's just no clarity on what is meant by consent. So these films in the present era, I think, really complicate the issue even furthermore, because what they do is that they don't set boundaries of what is acceptable behavior, when does it cross over to stalking, when is it playful, when is it pursuit or courtship of sort. So I think that is where we have to start getting very careful as screenwriters in terms of how we represent this, on how we represent certain behaviors which may be construed as morally unacceptable or permissive of in nature. So I think that's where I think the responsibility needs to kick in as far as writers are concerned.
And also, early on, you knew the villain was shown as someone, you knew this is a bad behavior because the character portrayed is the villain. But now you have a Shah Rukh Khan doing a dar, doing a Dilwale Dulhaniya. So you're a little confused. Is this acceptable? A dar-like behavior is okay. So does that also add to the confusion?
Well, if it's Shah Rukh Khan doing it, then it does become acceptable, doesn't it?
And that's the problem.
That's the thing, that's the way it works. At that time, I remember when Shah Rukh Khan did do it, it was great acting because he was, going grey. And many actors didn't do that. So there was this huge transition for him as an actor and pushing the envelope. So it was seen as sort of a creative move on his part. But today, I think, yes, I think you have to look at this without getting preachy. I'm very wary of films being preachy because I think the primary role is to entertain, and you shouldn't push in or slide in agenda or commentary unless you have to. Without getting preachy, I think films need to, or writers and actors and directors need to look at this a little more carefully in terms of the kind of messaging, because in our country nothing mainstreams the way cinema does, and that applies to behavior as well.
That's true.
If I may just interject, the popular imagery of both male and female needs to change, because the whole paradigm has shifted. The male need not be always the pursuer. The female always need not be the reluctant one. And we have to recognize today, we are trying to move to a situation where society recognizes that the role of the woman is not only in the home, and therefore is going to be out there, and there's got to be a mingling and a mixing of sexes. So unless you're talking of a very paternalistic kind of a return to paternalism, you are going to have a society which is going to be having this free mixing of sexes. So the new lines ought to be redrawn, as Advaita is saying.
Do you see a lot of these cases where, you know, there is, I saw it on a movie, I got it from there?
Yeah, of course. It was only recently that Snapdeal employee who got picked up, he was influenced by a film. But I think more than films, I understand that films also need to change. Ancient India was never really patriarchal. We all know that. The fact today is, it's got, pursuit is different, and perhaps stalking is different. Once in your subconscious mind you feel that, you know, her right to decide and her decision is better left to me, a man. That is where the friction comes in, and that is where the law comes in to protect. Now, that's the difference I think we should be really speaking about. Point, yes. Because, you know, how, you know, if she said no, well, you know, I know better. I'm the man, I know better. Correct. I know that, you know, you'll be better off with me. And this is where, when you cross that, you can say Lakshman Rekha of law, do the criminal laws start acting up? For example, recently you must have seen the provision of, if you stare longer than 14 seconds, that should become lechi, and that will be stalking. Now, this is where law is nothing but like a measurement of what you might be doing wrong and where you can be penalized. But the reality is that subconsciously in India we still deal with a lot of problems wherein the men always are the ones who need to be sought permission from to do anything for women, and that mentality needs to go. That's where the law comes in, that I'm sorry, you both are equals, and you know, you have equal rights and responsibilities. So I agree, films might be there to influence people, but the problem is actually much bigger in India.
Right. And where does the law come in? For instance, you know, in the recent case where this woman was stabbed 21 times, the stalker, she had complained about him, and he was actually in prison for a month and a half, and he was out on bail. So even the law can't help you, even if you use.
So procedurally,
what do you do?
A criminal or a suspect, because he's not convicted yet. Now he will be, because he's killed the woman. The fact here is that the balance in any criminal trial is such that you are just considered to be innocent unless proven guilty, and that is where the judge's discretion comes in. If on evidence and if on prima facie on the details, the judge feels that, you know, here is a case that, you know, nothing is going to be gained by keeping him behind lockup, and we don't feel that he doesn't have any criminal antecedents and so on. There's a plethora of factors which goes in behind the judge's discretion in actually granting bail. But that does not mean that the trial is over. You could be convicted on a later date. But that is always on like a benefit of doubt basis, that, you know, you will most likely not go out and do something fishy again, or, you know, just take the law in your hands. So that is where the procedural law may have to be amended, but then it won't be fair on people who are actually innocent.
That is always the catch. And also I can see the screenwriter's dilemma, you know, if he proposes and she says yes, then where's the story? I mean,
yes, story ends there.
Story ends there. So how do we portray it in a more sensitive manner or send the right message? It's
I think the real answer, if you're looking at both, even if you're looking at film, but also if you're looking at societal behavior, is to more and more focus on the free-spirited, independent, and standing on their own feet kind of woman. They need to become societal role models. And when they become role models, then it will no longer be expected of or acceptable for the male to be the one taking the decision. I know what's better.
That is it. And also age of Facebook, you know, because another case that we talked about has, they became friends on Facebook, and through Facebook you can monitor someone's movement. So stalking becomes all that much easier also.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the privacy concerns are a huge problem with the internet now, you know, because be it location, be it putting your life out there, you know, I think even for a long time when I was on Twitter, I was very wary about, I had this auto tweet delete, because I almost felt like, you know, people can track your thought process, and to me that was very problematic, because you can not so concerned about the things that you say in the public domain, but more so the pattern of your thinking. And I think these are going to increasingly become concerns. They already are concerns, I think, with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram. But then I think people are also, on the other hand, willing to share a lot more. You know, even be it photographs of their children. You know, I don't have children, but when I see a lot of my friends put the images out there, and I just wonder, you know, why would you do that? Because it would be so easy to then for this to turn up in all kinds of areas, child pornography sites, stalking. I mean, it's a whole can of worms.
So it's becoming difficult. You can't open up, you can't live, and there is the other problem is that. But we're going to just take a short break. We're going to come back and keep on discussing this. But first, a short break. Welcome back to Cover Story. This week we are taking a look at the menace of stalking and what can be done to prevent it, to change the mindset is what we've been discussing so far, but we're going to keep that discussion going. Nupur, to come back to you, you made some very good points. Changing the mindset is not just popular cinema, it's mindset of the society as a whole. So can you elaborate a bit more on this?
So, I've already spoken about mindset. There's something else, because right before the break we were talking about something which requires us an actual discussion, not just something happens and plain rhetoric and then everything goes back to normal. I have seen many times when any crimes against women happen, the first call by anybody, more so by politicians, is like sarkar ki galti hai, police ki galti hai. Reality is, like Advaita was talking about, that how much do you limit, because then be like, oh, my freedom of expression is being culled at. And if you talk about, oh, there is not enough police, in no country in this world would you have one policeman manning one citizen. That would be too much policing. You don't want a police state. You don't want your privacy to be thwarted by police looking right inside your bedrooms, because in a lot of rape cases that I come across, in a lot of crimes against women, usually the criminal or the accused is known, very well known. And especially in these two stabbing cases, and the one recent case wherein this guy threw off the woman from the house balcony and she's in the hospital. The reality here is that I'm not going to absolve the police. There may be a lethargy in reporting and what happens immediately after a criminal case. But I am going to say that apart from societal mindset, which requires an overhauling right from where you're born, how your parents bring, exactly. And I'm going to say, because my Prime Minister said it 2 years ago, do not ask where your daughters are going, ask where your sons are going, because that's where the danger is. You need to teach them gender sensitivity rather than teaching the women how they should be behaving. But at the same time, as far as law is concerned, we also need to realize that even after you've grown up and you've become adults, that entire mindset needs to change, be it in education, your family, how you treat women. Like I said, that's where the sole problem lies. Not to say that India is the only country with crimes against women. You have many countries in the world. So,
3 attacks in a day shows that the problem is...
it's actually, by the way, they're reported. You don't even know how many there might be which aren't reported.
So gender sensitivity, as the only man in the panel, Dilip, the ball's in your court.
I think gender sensitivity is taught first in the home, and that's where it ought to start.
Right.
It's either regurgitated in school or damaged completely in school. That also happens. And then it's got to be realigned back in the home. So I think that there is a huge task ahead, and the task does not belong in the HRD ministry, which we will be very happy to dump it into. No, it belongs in every home. And and I know of parents who will worry when their daughter is late coming home, but not be worried when their son is late coming home. So I'm just saying, it's not about security, it's about attitude that is built into our society. But I want to take off from a point, that was looking at where Nupur had placed the argument. But the technology argument also gives us equally solutions. When you suspect somebody is stalking you, you have today a variety of technological solutions of being able to report it, whether you get into an Uber, you know where you're going, you should take a shot of the driver. All these things now exist.
So it does help.
I think that technology is a double-edged sword. At this point of time, we are in a sense passive users of it. We need to train our girls because they are more vulnerable, not because boys need not be trained, but the girls need to be shown how this technology can be used to mask, as she said, what you don't want, and then to respond if you need help much faster.
And just to add on, because he is talking about the limitation, and that's a fact, because I personally have come across myself also, and I come across a lot of cases also wherein the women have actually approached the cops. Even if you feel that somebody is misbehaving with you, you can actually report it to the cops, because that can be considered harassment or stalking. depending on the
That is
extent.
where sensitizing the cops comes in also, because a lot of
Yes,
time,
but you can, so you have an online portal in India. You don't really need to go to the cops. It will directly go to the CBI headquarters, and that's
Really?
where they will, because that's where the...
so this online
entire-
portal is for women.
Everybody.
For-
Everybody can go in. It's like filing a complaint in the police. So you can just go on. It's under the IT Act that, I'm being harassed and this is the kind of language being used against me, and you can just file it online, and then the cops will get in touch with you.
So
It's simple as that.
it actually
And
works.
It actually works.
Okay, Advaita, I like what both Dilip and Nupur. The onus is also on the individual, not just the system. It's how you bring up your kids, how alert you are, how you use technology. So at the end of the day, we have no one to blame but ourselves also, to an extent.
To an extent. Sure. The whole structures are patriarchal in that sense. So even if you look at institutionalized, sexism.
Okay, no one to blame is wrong, but we can be our best police.
Which leans
That's a better
in,
way.
to use the famous lean-in terminology in this context, which leans in and kind of influences the way your systems respond, your laws respond. The person on the street, someone you may speak to about a problem that you're having, that response that comes your way. So I think there is an ecosystem which sort of fosters this kind of behavior and even justifies it. You have politicians, for example, make statements that why was she out so late at night?
Boys will be boys.
Something happens,
Yeah.
or boys will be boys. So you know how deep that goes. I think definitely. If you learn how to drive a car and you're using the roads, you do follow the rules. You do look out for your protection. You wear a seat belt. So if you're using technology, you must do that. No one says you assessing or recommending you become a Luddite and say that no, I'm off technology. Because I need my privacy. I don't need to be in this space. But if you are using technology, there are safeguards, like he said. If you're using the law, there is a law that'll help you. But personally, yes, I think you have to be a little vigilant because there is, and also remember, there is an aspect to this in our society in particular where stalking really comes from some sort of mental imbalance and mental disease, which, because we don't talk about it in our society, could be somebody living a very private double life, wherein they're battling this kind of disorder and compulsion, but doesn't have avenues themselves. So a little bit of empathy with that as well. A lot of times stalkers are not necessarily dangerous. They often are, but there are a lot of other aspects also that weigh in.
Need to be the mindset of a stalker. Do they usually come from troubled backgrounds, or they have some?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
You'll actually find that the most sane sounding and looking people actually turn out to be people with some mental imbalance
Some
or
control. Need to control then. That.
So the fact is that who does it? Who does it? The police can't man you. Nobody has control over another person's brain. The law cannot man you. Even if the judge puts you behind bars, what's the guarantee that you'll come out an absolutely squeaky clean person after your imprisonment is over?
Okay.
The reality is, and that is the point. How are you bringing up your family, and how are you bringing up the next generation, and especially the men in the society?
Okay, quickly, just to wrap up, Dilip, since you are into this kind of image thing, how would you, the mindset of a stalker person whose tendencies that would lead him to be a stalker?
I'm no psychoanalyst to be an expert on this, but I think it tends to be people who have this urge to control the other. So you can't, because you're obsessed by the other, you want to control the other, and that would be the sign. And that is easily manifested in so many people around us. But those where it goes to a peak, it tends to be some kind of deviant behavior.
So that is a sign to look for in interactions with people you're interacting with. If there is you see with someone, one of your colleagues, acquaintances, the control freak, that need to dominate, then you know that you have to be a little wary, I guess. That could be one
quick thing, since we're talking about technology, and this is very interesting, but I think urban loneliness is increasing, and technology actually aids that, because you have the illusion of interacting with people when you're not, and I think that contributes a bit to stalking as well. Yeah, exactly. So that contributes to stalking as well. So I think we're going to see an increase, unfortunately.
So one safeguard is be more alert, be more wary. But that's it from us. Thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.